Hi, I'm Cecil Lewis and welcome to my channel. Whether you are writing romance or horror, fantasy or contemporary, your story will need to build tension and balance pacing. These are the two elements that keep readers engaged and turning page after page, but they can be challenging to manage throughout a novel. Let's start with building suspense. Suspense is all about creating anticipation and keeping your audience engaged. To do this, you will need to implement 3 techniques. First is foreshadowing, which is the dropping of subtle hints about what's to come, whether through dialogue or narration. Han Solo's classic line, "I have a bad feeling about this," is a great example of foreshadowing. We don't know what exactly is going to happen, but we know it's not going to be good. Then we withhold information from our reader, giving them just enough to pique their curiosity, but leaving them with a question or two about what's really going on. For instance, if you have a character briefly mention that their mother is gone, the reader will notice and then start asking things like, well, where'd she go? Is she dead? What happened to her? Lastly, we need to increase the risk for the characters by raising the stakes. The higher the stakes for the character, whether it's the fate of a kingdom, a relationship ending, or failing a major test, the more suspenseful the scene will become. One thing to consider about this last idea though, you can't start the stakes high. You have to build it up and raise them after the reader is already emotionally invested in your characters. Otherwise, you're just kind of presenting this really intense scene without any kind of emotional ties or emotional stakes involved. Now let's talk about balancing fast and slow scenes. The pace of your story plays a huge role in maintaining reader interest. If the pacing is too fast for too long, or while too much is happening, the reader is going to feel stressed and overwhelmed, putting the book down for a more pleasant leisure activity. On the other hand, if the pace is too slow, the reader is going to get bored. The latter of the two seems to be what writers struggle with most, over-explaining, having long sentences, or just not getting to the darn point already. The pacing of the scene helps with the tone. If there's an action sequence, you're going to want fast-paced scene with a lot of short sentences. If there's a romance scene where time seems to stand still for the characters, you can show this through slowing down the pacing and describing every sensory detail. Even though just as much time might have passed with these two scenes, one might be a paragraph, while the other could be an entire chapter. The genre in which you write is going to have a lot of impact on how you pace your writing, but you should really look at each individual scene. A great example of this would be The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Or, if you're wanting something a little less brutal, The Hunger Games. That was sarcastic. They're both super brutal, but the latter one is made for teenagers. Both these books do a fantastic job slowing down scenes to allow the reader to get to know the characters and understand the situations. But once things get going, it's flying at breakneck speed and your heart is racing while you read. Another reason why genre helps you figure out your pacing is that it also gives you insight into the level of pacing your reader may want throughout the story. Young adult romantasy is going to be much more fast-paced than adult fantasy. Action-adventure stories are going to be way faster than cozy mysteries, and so on. While you're writing your first draft, try not to worry too much on whether the pacing is staying at the right speed throughout your novel. It's super hard to tell as you're writing. This is what the revision and editing stages are for, which we'll be taking a deep dive into in the next video. But for now, that's all I have for you guys. Subscribe, hit the bell, comment down below with any thoughts, questions, or other suggestions for writers when it comes to suspense and tension. You've got some writing to do, so I'll see you in the next video. Ta-ta.